The Colorado Buffaloes were able to bounce back after a tough couple weeks and were able to survive in the desert.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode, we're doing a live recap of Colorado's huge win over Arizona State. I'm going to talk about Deion Sanders clutching up in the huge win. I'm going to talk about my biggest takeaways from the game, and then what's next for the Colorado Buffaloes. As you can see, I'm a little sunburned. Was out here in Dallas today, taking in another game, and the sun got the best of me, to say the least. So I am a little a little redder than normal, but nonetheless, was able to tune in and watch what was a fantastic Colorado game. And honestly, it was one that I think was closer than many expected. Obviously, the odds makers projected this to be a close one, but I thought Colorado would be able to bounce back and kind of blow out Arizona State. But I do think that I didn't give enough credit to that Arizona State defense, which, mind you, even though Deion Sanders clutched up, which, mind you, he did, he led them to the game-winning field goal, led them on a game-winning drive. He was, in fact, sacked a total of, Stat Broadcast has it at 3 times, probably was more, and he is continuing to be the most sacked quarterback in the country, which is a tough look, but hey, according to some people, he's just padding stats and hoping to get those numbers up, and so he takes sacks on purpose, even though that's not really a thing. But what we took away from this game is, obviously, if Deion Sanders plays well enough, Colorado can win. And I think that's what we kind of saw in his performance. Let me read you his numbers: 26 of 42, completed 62% of his passes, threw for a touchdown. He got a little bit of help from the running game today. Anthony Hankerson continues to kind of emerge as that lead back. Obviously, Dylan Edwards didn't really get much going. Only had 16 yards on 7 carries, 2.3 yards per carry, and then none of the other running backs really got any opportunity. So Anthony Hankerson has clearly ran away with the job, and I think he's done the best. I would say he's the most complete running back on the team. He's the one that they could block with, they can throw the ball to, and I think he's kind of the complete guy that they've been missing. I don't know if he's as elusive as what they need, as what Alton McCaskill is supposed to be, but hasn't really played yet. But nonetheless, they're getting some help from the run game. And then offensively, receiver-wise, it was Mikey Harrison leading the way with 6 catches, but Javon Antonio had 81 yards. I thought it was going to be the Omarion Miller game. It wasn't really his game today. He had 5 targets, and was only able to haul in one of them. But Colorado found a way to win, and I think that's the important part. I think this Colorado team was battle-tested the past couple weeks. They were embarrassed against Oregon. They were kind of embarrassed in the first half against USC, and I think this was a big statement game for Deion Sanders because this Arizona team, their 1-4 record prior to the game was a little deceiving. I think we look at them and we go, 1-4, they're not good. But realistically, they played USC really close. They played other teams really close. I think they lost 3 of their games by single digits, or they at least they didn't lose the USC game by single digits. But it was at one point, it was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. So they've been playing everybody close. So this was a much better test than I think I was indicating, and I think it was a much better test than the people around the country were indicating. And I think Colorado came out and proved themselves. And so without further ado, Deion Sanders deserves his flowers. Another win without Travis Hunter is another week survived. Obviously, Colorado advances to 4-2, which is a great record. If you're a gambling person, which obviously I talk to you guys about all the time, I'm legally not a gambling person because I reside in the state of California. Colorado has officially hit their win total because prior to the year, let me show you right here, presented by our sponsors over at FanDuel, their win total was 3.5. So all they had to do was hit 4 wins. So they've obviously already hit their win total on the year, and we're barely in the first week of October. So Coach Prime has already exceeded expectations and will continue to do so. And obviously, Deion Sanders being one of the best quarterbacks in the country only helps him do that. So huge win for Colorado. I'm going to talk about my takeaways, but first, I need to tell you guys about my sponsors over at Athletic Brewing. And today's game would have been a good day to pop open a cold one of Athletic Brewing. Let me tell you a little bit about my sponsors over there. My game changer of the week is obviously Deion Sanders. Kind of led them on a clutch drive, was able to avoid crumbling under the pressure, able to avoid the stingy Arizona State defense, just like Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer. They make non-alcoholic beers that taste so good, you won't even realize that they're non-alcoholic. They've won awards. They've beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beers, including IPAs, golden sours, and more. They're fit for all time, so you can drink them anytime, anywhere, and make any activity even more enjoyable, like watching a big game like tonight's game or your kid's game. Maybe you're at a soccer game or a t-ball game at 8 a.m. and you just want to drink something, but obviously you don't want to be judged. Go with Athletic Brewing. It's great, and obviously the best part, no hangovers. You can find Athletic in-store, online, and at bars around the country. They're the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the U.S., so get on board. I personally took the little quiz, found my perfect flavor. It's amazing. I drink it just about every time I get my shipment. I'm like, finally. So if you want to do the same, you could use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near the beer aisle, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company is fit for all times. You won't want to miss it. It is delicious to die for, if you will. Takeaways from the game. Obviously, I don't really want to talk about it every week, but it's going to be a takeaway until it's not a takeaway. So it's going to be a takeaway until next year. The offensive line is absolutely horrendous. I think the person who came up with the take that Shedeur Sanders is taking sacks on purpose to pad his stats, I just need them to watch this offensive line and tell themselves that offensive line is – I need themselves to look themselves in the mirror and be like, yeah, that's a good offensive line, because that offensive line continues to struggle. I think they're part of the main reason the run game is not going anywhere. And it's just horrendous. It continues each and every week. Shedeur got banged up on one of the sacks, and I was a little worried. They kind of, I think it was his head or something, but he stayed on the ground for a little bit, and I was like, that's the last thing Colorado needs. And it just was not what they were planning going into the season, but it is what it is. The defense, I was a little surprised that Trenton Bourguet was able to kind of pick them apart as much as he was. He threw for 335 yards, 1 touchdown. He also was a little banged up. They were absolutely decimated by Elijah Badger. He had 12 catches for 134 yards. And granted, I would say this is a Travis Hunter effect. Obviously, not having Travis Hunter in the game kind of takes away – it makes life more difficult to put into, for lack of a better term. Having Travis Hunter makes everyone's life easier. It makes life more difficult for the defense or for the offense is what I was saying. He just kind of shuts down one side of the field, and he would probably shut down, or if not shut down, limit Elijah Badger, who had 12 catches for 134 yards. And then the next best receiver had 5 catches for 32 yards. And so it was just all over the place for this Colorado defense. They really weren't doing well in coverage. And I think, again, Travis Hunter effect, they have young corners all over the place. But they were pressuring the quarterback, which was nice to see. They had 5 sacks. Levante Bentley, the Clemson transfer, got one. Miles Slusher, who was returning from injury, the Arkansas transfer, got one. Arden Walker got one. Amari McNeil got one. And then Derek McClendon. So getting to the quarterback is a big thing. Also, I noticed freshman wide receiver, 4-star Adam Hopkins, is a DB now. I don't know if that's going to be his long-term position, but I think that was kind of a we need help at corner situation. So they plugged him in there. And then the biggest observation of the game, probably not the sexiest observation, but Alejandro Mata took the 2 clutch field goals. He hit the 42-yarder to make it 24-17. And then obviously when the game was tied 24-24, he hit the game winner after Shedeur led them down the drive. So Jace Feely is no longer the kicker for long field goals. Is Alejandro Mata, the smaller Jackson State transfer, which is exciting for him. He's earned his role there, and you love to see that for him. And then when I look at these, like the stat lines for Colorado, I look at the receivers. Obviously, Mikey Harrison and Jimmy Horn were among the leaders, but a lot of it's the group has kind of shrunk down. And I expected this to happen. It happens every year. Sean Lewis's offense. It's about 4 to 5 receivers are the main guys. Michael Harrison is probably the most utilized tight end he's ever had in one of his systems. And then Javon Antonio had a big game, touchdown, 81 yards total. Jimmy Horn is one of the other guys. And then Omarion Miller and Xavier Weaver both had quiet nights, but they are not rotating receivers as much as you would think. And it's just not a huge rotation like it was in past weeks. And I think that's kind of by design. I think they wanted certain guys to step up. And then rushing wise, Anthony Hankerson, 58 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. And then after that, it's just Dylan Edwards. Kavosi Smoke has 1 carry for 1 yard, or 1 carry for -2 yards, excuse me. And I just don't know. I don't know what the running backs coach or whoever is deciding the running backs personnel is seeing in this group, but he is obviously not confident in many of the other guys, not giving them chances. But hey, that's kind of how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So Colorado's defense had good moments. I was a little worried about how easily they were getting picked apart because obviously they're going to play much tougher offenses in the future, but they did enough to win the game, and that's all that matters. And you know what else matters is my sponsor over at eBay Motors. Let me tell you about eBay Motors, because if you have a car and you've ever had to worry about getting the right piece or right part for your car, you won't have to do that with eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into high-speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back. I am very excited to be talking about this Colorado win with you guys. Obviously, they needed this win. What's next for Colorado? I think this is the perfect timing for this stretch. They had a lot of guys banged up. They had, I would say, their confidence had taken a hit. Let's be honest. You get blown out on national television, I think, in what was the most watched game in college football, or one of the most watched games in college football, against Oregon, and you lose some wind in your sails. And then you go back home, USC comes to town, they kind of beat up on you a little bit, and you're able to win, you're able to make it close but not win. So Colorado needed this win. I think it was a hard-fought win. I think if you look at the records, you're like, oh, they beat a 1-4 team. But that's a much better 1-4 team. They're probably the best 1-4 team in college football, which I don't know if that's really saying much, but they're a really talented team. I think they just haven't had some things go their way, a lot of injuries and stuff like that. So that's one takeaway. They're surviving and advancing without Travis Hunter. This is now game 3 without Travis, and they're only going to play one more game, I believe, without him. I don't think he's going to play for the Stanford game next week, which is on Friday, unless obviously they decide to play him. But they're continuing to survive and advance without Travis, which is good because he could rest, get healthy, and so that's great. And then obviously I think they need, after this Stanford game, which I think they should be favored by at least 6 or 7 points, maybe 8 points, I think they'll have enough time to rest everybody and come back stronger for what will be a very important stretch. They have UCLA, Washington State, and Utah. And so this Colorado team is going to heat up at the right time. I think they have a chance to be 5-2 next week. They have the bye week. They have a tough UCLA team, which is a team that should probably give them trouble. They're a physical defense that has been kind of making life hell for everybody. They lost to Utah, but it was only 14-7, and then they beat Washington State today. And so UCLA is a much tougher team than they expected. Most people expected, but hey, Colorado's trending in the right direction, and I would say that's my biggest takeaway. And for you guys, I'm excited to see what this Colorado season turns into. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.